Well, okay. So thank you, John, and all of those who are here for having me. Let me set my timer so I seize the 20 minutes productively. Well, so this is my presentation and it is called Looking After Teachers and Students' Wellbeing in Remote Teaching Times. I'll tell you a bit about me. I'm a teacher educator at Escuela Normal de Amecameca, which is a teacher training college in Mexico. And I'm also the BBELT, Best and Brightest TNLT Conference Teacher Research Special Interest Group Online Events Coordinator. And well, it is because of that, because of my interest in teacher research that I have been doing something regarding this topic that I will be presenting today. Well, so to begin, let me share the outline with you. And well, I'll be talking about the context in which I carried out this research study. I'll be sharing some details about remote teaching, and I will tell you the focus of this presentation, which is well-being from two perspectives. Then I will share with you the actions that I implemented to look after well-being and the findings. It will be at the same time, okay? And finally, I will be closing this session by sharing some final thoughts on the topic with you. Well, so the context, as I said, I'm from Mexico. I'm from the other side of the ocean. And no matter the time it is here in Mexico, well, the state of Mexico is this green state or area in this map. And there in that green area, we can find another place which is called Amecameca. It is a municipality or a small community which is part of this state, the state of Mexico. And in the state of Mexico, we can find the Escuela Normal de Amecameca or Amecameca Normal School, which is a teacher training college which offers two different Bachelor of Arts programs. One of them is the Bachelor of Arts in Preschool Education, and one of them is, well, the other is the Bachelor in Teaching English as a foreign language to young learners. So the focus of this research was, the participants in this research were some teacher trainers from that, from the Normal, and some teachers from, who are alumni from the Normal and now are teachers at secondary education. And well, the students who took part in this research study were my students from the Normal, and they were in their junior year of their Bachelor of Arts program. Well, the reasons why I focused on well-being were the following. And it is because of, the pandemic that everybody started to work remotely. And at least in this context that I have just told you about, I could realize that there were different things teachers and students were dealing with. So just for your information, just to share some details with you, well, emergency remote teaching makes evident this variation of infrastructure that students have at home to continue learning in the distance. In addition to that, there is also a variation of resources that schools and students have as well, no? And competencies. No matter if students were born after 2000, they still, and although they are believed to be digital native learners, well, they still have a variation in competencies regarding technology. However, let me tell you that, well, in emergency remote teaching, technology is not that necessary, you know, but because of the way in which we work, or the way in which technology plays an important role in our lives, well, it was pretty evident its use in this term in which we were working remotely. In emergency remote teaching, there's also an excess of screen exposure, and an excess of being online. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do something upon that, because I was seeing that my colleagues and some of my students were dealing with that. No, they didn't know how to react to that exposure, to that excess. Another characteristic is that emergency remote teaching is abrupt. However, and the good news is that it is temporary, but indefinite though, no? Well, so those were some of the reasons why I wanted to do something upon this situation about looking after my well-being, some colleagues' well-being, and my students' well-being. And these are some of the actions that I implemented. And as I said to you, some data that supports how these actions worked. The first action was the implementation of WhatsApp Business, which in Mexico is quite popular. I was reading some information about South Korea, and the applications that you use are quite different. However, well, just to share my experience, this application was quite useful because it contributed, the use of WhatsApp Business contributed to this feeling of certainty that students needed at the moment of contacting or establishing contact with the teacher. They were, after implementing this action, the students that I told you about were more aware of the teacher's schedules and their own schedules. They, with the use of this application, they were used to sticking to the schedule instead of just insisting every single time they wanted the teacher to respond or reply to a message, no? And now what the teachers said was about WhatsApp was the following. Why using it for academic purposes? Because it, as it is the business version of WhatsApp, it has some functions that made how to say it, that made this contact with the learners easier and more practical. The effect that it had in their learners and the parents, because I must confess that the teachers who participated in this, in the application of this action, were from primary education. So the parents said, and the teacher said that using WhatsApp gave them this feeling of comfort and calm, because they were still in contact, but sticking to their schedules, no? Students, the reactions of students and parents were the following. They were more aware of the teacher's schedule. They didn't insist on contacting the teacher all day because the automatic reply function that WhatsApp Business has was very productive and very useful in that in that term, no? They if they contacted the teacher after their scheduled times or their working hours, they were sent an automatic reply that immediately let them know that the teacher was going to respond later or as soon as their academic activities resume normally. So it definitely contributed to well-being, especially mental, because of this function of WhatsApp Business. Well, the second action that I implemented was the use of music. And I will explain to you how this was. As my students and I, started to use Microsoft Teams and Zoom, you know, this uncomfortable waiting room in which there's silence and we are waiting for everybody to join. I came up with the idea of playing some music in those 5 minutes and my students experienced positive feelings. They said that they didn't want to be waiting, for the lesson to start silently. So they preferred listening to songs during that time. And that's what I did. Now, during the lesson, I also played some music and planned some activities so my students could not only be taking the lesson or listening to me just by looking at their computer, but also by turning their cameras and moving a little bit. And that was quite engaging. They felt they were active and relaxed in those activities. It definitely contributed to their mental well-being because instead of starting the lesson abruptly or telling them, okay, now let's wait, they knew that when the song was over, the class was going to start. And besides being in this class in which I taught them methodology to teach English, they didn't feel that overwhelmed because I played some music at some points of the lesson and they moved and they did something. So the way in which music was used in this action was with that purpose, no? To have the learners feel engaged, but also experience another way to be in an online classroom. Now, just for your information, these are the styles my students preferred. They loved listening to pop songs in the waiting room, rock, reggaeton, and K-pop, which is quite popular in our country, well, in Mexico. Well, the third action that I implemented that worked well as well was the implementation of teamwork and interaction during these sessions, which were online and synchronous. The students said that they preferred teamwork because they had immediate support from their peers and also from the teacher. As this action was implemented at the beginning of a new semester, they also confessed that they could get to know each other better, and they also experienced some improvement. This interaction, either in the breakout rooms or in different moments of the lesson with different partners, made them feel more, how to say it, yes, like more comfortable and that they were learning more. If they worked individually, they said that they needed some support. They felt they needed help, and they had actually more questions, and they felt nervous at the moment of performing a task. So I implemented different activities in which teamwork was necessary, so I could contribute to this feeling of wellness, no? Now, just regarding numbers, 91.7% of my learners said that they preferred working collaboratively to feel, this comfortable, this mentally stable in the class, because if they worked individually, they felt they needed something else. So fortunately, just 8.3% of my learners said that they preferred working individually. Now, what you need to take into account at the moment of doing this implementation of teamwork and interaction is to bear in mind the individual differences of the learners. Try to make mixed ability groups so your students can actually feel in a more, how to say it, in a more heterogeneous environment, and everybody can contribute as well, no? Prepare your activity on time and test everything before. If you are going to use an application or a tool, prepare this so you can actually contribute to that feeling of feeling safe and comfortable in the lesson. The following action that I implemented that was quite beneficial was breathing. And that's something that I actually continue doing. For this, I asked some colleagues to breathe, to take a deep breath for 1 minute whenever they felt quite overwhelmed or stressed. And the effects were the following. They said they experienced feelings like, feel this peaceful, they felt relaxed, they felt more calmed down. They also felt distressed when they had this minute to take a deep breath and rest. The usefulness of this action was, based on the words that they said to me, was a lot. And these are some of the quotations that some of them shared with me. And this is just, well, this illustration that is in red is just to tell you how this worked. They needed to hold, they needed to breathe in, and then they needed to breathe out, as I said to you, for a minute. Whenever, at the moment they thought they were quite stressed, or they were experiencing like distress or any other negative feelings. Unfortunately, the effects were positive. This quotation was taken from one of the, actually from the principal of the Normal. And she said, breathing for a minute makes me feel relaxed. I reorder my ideas and start to see things differently. After breathing that way, my thoughts flow more consciously. And then she told me that, implementing this action for a while helped her make better decisions whenever she felt stressed or pretty busy because of her, because of her role at the Normal. Now, the last action, which is action 5, is being physically active. Looking after your body as well is quite important when working remotely. And when I say being physically active, I refer to move your body, but also to do exercise, depending on your activities and on the way that you are used to being physically active. The teachers who were interviewed and who were actually asked to implement some actions to keep physically active during this work to work, said the following, that they experienced some feelings like relaxation. They felt more energetic and happier after doing some exercise at home, or after having a walk, or after running a little bit. And they said this action contributed to their physical and mental well-being, because they were not only working in front of the computer all the time, they were also doing other activities that kept them physically active. They also said that staying hydrated was something important, drinking water, and it is definitely something essential to keep your body working throughout the day and feel well. This thing of having of being physically active also involves having a good sleep, the thing that I'm not doing tonight. But well, just if you are working remotely, try to do this and spend your time wisely. This is something important. Spend your time wisely. Stick to your schedule. Plan your agenda, and start from the hard things or the things that you don't probably like a lot, so you can feel more productive at the end. And well, these are some final thoughts regarding this research study. How to make remote teaching something more bearable? Well, turn your routines into habits. It's quite important when working remotely to plan a routine, to make this like a routine. So these routines can be turned into habits, and you don't feel like obligated to do them, no? So it is quite important to make the things a routine, especially when dealing with this situation, which is abrupt and temporary, but you don't know when it is going to be over. Reflect after your lessons, listen to your students, so you can plan and teach classes that you as a teacher will enjoy, but also your students. Test any equipment or any tool or anything you want before you implement it, so that you don't experience any stress or any unnecessary feelings. Start from hard things to do and move forward, so your day can be even more productive. Take breaks. It's necessary to take breaks when working remotely. It is necessary. have some spare time with your family, with your friends, with the TV, by having a conversation to whom whenever you want. And the last one, be constant and disciplined. So just to finish and to wrap up this, well, to close this session, not a wrap up, this is the Easter egg 4 from one of my favorite movies that I'm actually watching this weekend with my niece, who is going to her preschool for the first time on Monday. And well, these are some references and acknowledgements that I wanted to share. And it's time for questions, and it's 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omar, for your presentation. And could you stop the screen share, and I'll have the gallery view. Great. Sure. So in about 10 minutes, there will be a social event, but please stick around for a few minutes and let's do some Q&A with Omar. And actually, let's everyone give Omar a big round of applause. Please unmute.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you. So anyone, let's begin with some questions. You can say your question or type it into the chat. Just because I want to go somewhere completely different and learn.
So, how successful have you been in implementing these wonderful, thorough suggestions for health and well-being in your own life in the pandemic?
In my own,
sure.
Thank you for your question. In my own life, I must confess that I actually implemented these actions first with me and to me in my personal life. And that's why I dared to ask other teachers to implement those actions. It was going to be quite selfish if I reported, or if I had reported all these research study based on my experience. No, so that's why I consider I was successful in implementing these actions first, because as I saw they were working for me, I did some research, I read some information on the web, so I could ask my colleagues to implement them. No, so I would say these actions were successful in my life, and they have been successful, and that's how I've been going through the remote teaching like in a good way. I haven't hated it yet. I like it. I enjoy working this way.
Yeah, actually, me too. They're really similar to what has been working for me. I have not done them successfully this past week, but I think that's just because the event is now.
Yes. They got me
the
water, to take a deep breath.
Drinking water, not just like being quite specific, like I'm going to drink this much water today, I'm going to exercise this often. And
yes,
I do try to encourage my students to take care of themselves, because quite often what is a problem that seems about an assignment can just be about life management or their personal well-being. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that.
Yes, have your students or promoting your students these actions as well. They might find them probably interesting or good for them. Sophia, you had a question.
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think this is a much needed topic. And I mean, for research, wow. So I wanted to ask you with regards to remote teaching or emergency remote teaching that you mentioned, do you think that there is special need or extra need, if you like, for catering for teachers and students' well-being during this period, or is this something that we can apply in the face-to-face classroom? Do you think that there is extra need during the pandemic times?
This is definitely something we can apply in the face-to-face classroom. I think that well-being is something that shouldn't only be looked after because of remote teaching work. It should be always that needs to be evident, no? Looking after your well-being, mentally speaking, physically speaking, will always be important to be productive, either in the face-to-face classroom or working online. It will definitely make your life happier, and it will make your teaching more enjoyable. So yes, this is something that needs to be in any context, no? Yeah.
Great, thank you.
No, thanks to you for your question. So John, may I share my screen just for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe we have
Thank you.
2 or 3 minutes
Yep.
remaining.
Okay. So just finish this presentation. I'd like to share my contact details just in case you want to get to know more about this topic. I'd like to share with you that I'm actually expanding my thoughts on these actions. I'm actually looking for more actions to share with my colleagues and with my students, so I can make now this strange blended learning strategy that is being applied in Mexico a little bit more functional by looking after my students and my colleagues' well-being. So just in case you want to get to know more, you can follow me there. So many thanks for having me and for your questions and for being here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Omar. And yeah, I'll stop the recording now.